They didn't grow up together, but they were forged in the same fire. One was held captive in the wild heart of the Huns, the other a pawn in the politics of Rome. Both were sons of power, taken young, raised among enemies, watching empires from behind enemy walls. And when they returned home, they remembered everything. Years later, they would meet again, not as prisoners, but as commanders. At the edge of a collapsing world, on the plains of Catalaunian fields, one led the last true Roman army, the other, the storm that had swallowed half the world. This is the story of Attila and Aetius.
Two former hostages, one final duel, and the moment Rome's fate hung by a thread.
By the early 400s, the Western Roman Empire was coming apart. Its borders shrank, its legions thinned, no longer Roman, but mercenaries with fading loyalty. Corruption rotted the core. Emperors rose and fell, often murdered in marble halls they could no longer command. What once ruled the known world was now fighting just to survive. And while the West crumbled, something else was rising. Far from Rome's stone cities, across the open plains beyond the Danube, tribes were stirring, not just raiding, but unifying. The Huns had arrived years earlier, ferocious horsemen, fast, ruthless, and alien to everything Rome understood. But under one man, they transformed. Under Attila, they became more than a terror. They became a storm, a moving empire united not by law, but by blood, fear, and fire. They built no cities, wrote no codes, left behind no monuments, only ash. And now, the threat wasn't just knocking at Rome's gates. It was learning, and it was coming. Before they commanded armies, they were traded as bargaining chips. Two future giants sent away as insurance in fragile times, not by choice, but by empire. Flavius Aetius was born into Roman privilege, but around 405, as a teenager, he was sent east into the heart of the Huns. Rome needed peace, and Aetius became the price. He spent years in their camps, a Roman boy among warriors on horseback. He learned their language, studied their battles, rode beside the men he might one day fight. But he didn't just survive, he adapted. When civil war broke Rome from the inside, it was Hunnic cavalry that Aetius called to his side. He trusted them more than his own legions, because he knew how they fought, how they thought, and they knew him, respected him. Attila followed a different road. Alongside his brother Bleda, he was sent to Constantinople, hostage in the court of the Eastern Roman Empire. There he saw another kind of power, marble palaces, silk-robed senators, a world ruled by negotiation, not swords, by fear, not fire. He never forgot it. Years later, he would sit on his own throne and wield Roman fear more effectively than Roman steel. One was raised in the wild, the other in marble halls, but both returned home, transformed, and both remembered what they learned from the inside of the enemy's world. When Aetius returned from the land of the Huns, Rome was already splintering. Power shifted with every dagger in the dark. Civil wars tore through the provinces. Barbarians pressed in from every border. But Aetius wasn't a senator. He wasn't a dreamer. He was a survivor and a strategist. He didn't trade in speeches. He dealt in leverage. He forged alliances through force, fear, and familiarity. The Huns, the Goths, the Franks, he used them all when it served Rome and when it served him. He didn't fight for glory. He fought to stop the center from collapsing, even if the cracks had already spread too far. By the 440s, Aetius had risen to master of soldiers, Rome's top general. Its last one. Some called him ruthless. He crushed rivals, made peace with former enemies, held power for over 20 years in a city that burned through leaders like parchment. But others saw something else: stability, control. A man who still remembered what Rome had been and understood what it could never be again. Later chroniclers called him the last of the Romans, not because he was pure, not because he was kind, but because when the walls trembled, he was still standing. Attila didn't inherit power, he claimed it. For nearly a decade, he ruled alongside his brother Bleda. Then, around 445, Bleda was dead, killed by Attila's order. There would be no rivals, no second voices, only one will. And once he ruled alone, nothing held him back. He turned east, raided the Eastern Roman Empire again and again, burned cities, demanded tributes so massive emperors paid just to keep their gates closed. Attila didn't conquer to govern, he conquered to cripple. To the Romans, he was no longer a man. He was an omen, a divine punishment. They named him the Scourge of God. But within his own empire, he was something else. In 449, a Roman envoy named Priscus visited his camp. He expected a tyrant. What he saw was different. Attila wore plain clothes, a wooden plate in front of him, while his generals ate from silver. He didn't smile, he didn't boast. He sat still, and he listened. One Roman exile said of him, "Among his people, he is just and fair, but to his enemies, he is death." He ruled through discipline. Loyalty mattered more than gold, and when his men disobeyed, he punished swiftly. He wasn't feared just for what he destroyed. He was feared because he chose when to destroy and when not to. In 450 CE, a single letter changed everything. Princess Honoria, sister of the Western Roman Emperor, sent a plea and a ring to Attila. Some say she was desperate to escape a forced marriage. Attila claimed it was a proposal, and with that, he demanded half the Western Roman Empire as her dowry. Rome refused. So Attila turned west. He crossed the Rhine with a colossal force: Huns, Ostrogoths, Alans, Herulds, and more. Not one tribe, but many, bound by fear, gold, and Attila's command. City after city fell. Metz was burned, Trier looted. Next in line, Orleans. In Ravenna, the Roman court panicked, but Aetius didn't. He moved fast. He called on the Visigoths, led by Theodoric I, reached out to the Franks, the Burgundians, and any tribe that feared Attila more than they resented Rome. And they answered. Documented reality. Theodoric had once fought against Rome. Now he marched beside Aetius. Not for honor, not for loyalty, for survival. That's what made Aetius different. He didn't demand allegiance. He earned trust in war. As Attila advanced toward Orleans, Aetius and his coalition closed in. Two armies, two worlds, one final collision. Attila arrived first. He set up camp with his back to a river, a clear signal he would not retreat. Then came Aetius. At his side stood the Visigoths, Franks, Burgundians, and what remained of Rome's fractured legions. Some sources say over 100,000 men stood on those fields. Others claim even more. But all agree on one thing. It was one of the bloodiest battles of late antiquity. Attila took the center. His heavy cavalry slammed through Roman lines. For a moment, the center buckled. But on the flanks, Aetius pushed back, and the Visigoths struck hard. In the chaos, King Theodoric I was killed. Some say he fell from his horse. Others, that a spear took him through the chest. But his army didn't break. His son, Thorismund, rallied them and drove straight into Attila's lines with fury. Attila held, barely. That night, expecting the worst, he ordered a massive funeral pyre built behind his camp. Not for his enemies, for himself. Multiple sources recorded Attila was ready to die. But the next day, Aetius didn't attack. He let Attila go. Why? Some say he feared victory, that destroying Attila might hand too much power to the Visigoths. Others say he had no strength left to fight. Whatever the reason, Attila withdrew, not conquered, but stopped. And Rome, for now, survived. The next year, Attila returned. In 452, he crossed into Italy. Cities burned. Aqueducts crumbled. He marched toward Rome itself. Panic swept the empire. No armies stood in his way. No fortress strong enough to stop him. And then, he turned back. No one knows exactly why. Some say it was disease, a plague ravaging his ranks. Others say starvation, burned fields, broken supply lines. But the most enduring version tells of a meeting, a moment. Attila, face to face with Pope Leo I, a warlord and a priest. No weapons, no army, just words. No eyewitness account survives. But the legend did, that a single man, unarmed, stood before the Scourge of God and convinced him to turn away. In 453, Attila died, not in battle, not in glory, but in his tent, after a night of drinking at his wedding. Some say he choked on his own blood. Others, a burst blood vessel ended him. His empire, built on fear and fire, fractured in months. His sons fought each other. His allies became enemies. The storm collapsed from within. And Aetius? In 454, he returned to court, still Rome's strongest man, still the empire's last shield. But strength breeds fear, and fear acts. Emperor Valentinian III stabbed him to death, in public. No trial, no warning. Later, the emperor asked one of his advisors, was it right to kill the man who saved the empire? One of his advisors replied in a whisper, you cut off your right hand. Attila left behind a shattered empire, but his name endured, as fear, as fire, as legend. To his enemies, he was destruction. To his people, discipline. A force of nature that answered to no borders, no thrones. He proved you didn't need marble cities to shape history, just momentum and the will to use it. Aetius left behind silence. Rome had no one else like him, no general with his reach, no leader with his ruthless sense of balance. He didn't save the empire, but he slowed its collapse. And for one last moment, he showed the world what Roman strength had once been. Both men were shaped by exile, raised among the very people they were meant to fear, forged behind enemy walls. Both walked between worlds, bridged them, held them together, and both, in the end, were lost to the very powers they once commanded. They didn't grow up under the same roof, but they shared something deeper, the language, the scars, and the silence of men raised by their enemies. Aetius knew how the Huns moved. Attila knew how Rome hesitated. And when they met on the plains of Gaul, it wasn't just a battle, it was a reckoning. The last true contest between two worlds that understood each other too well. No triumph, no peace, only delay. For Rome, a final breath. For Attila, a final push. And for both, a place in history neither empire could forget or fully explain.